And you are live.
All right, thank you, and welcome everyone to the City of Annapolis Environmental Commission monthly November meeting at our slightly delayed meeting this month due to the Thanksgiving holiday. We do have relatively short agenda due to some last minute changes and shifting, but we have no shortage of things to talk about and updates to hear, as well as some new members joining us tonight, who are either one of which has been sworn in, the other two soon to be sworn in. So that's always exciting. I think with the 3 new members, that does put us up to 9 members for the first time in a very long time that I can remember, at least a few years or so. So that is exciting. I think we do want to get some of the standard business out of the way. So first we'll start with a roll call. And first, let's see. I'll just acknowledge Sarah Oliver and Alicia Robertson. Since you're not sworn in, I'll just acknowledge you're present as guests. And then we can go through the wards of the members down the list. So Ward 1.
Marianne Marbury, Ward 1.
And the rest of you know the drill.
Okay. Good evening. It's Bill O'Leary, Ward 2.
Linda, are you also Ward 5?
I'm 5. Yeah.
Okay.
Linda Matthew, Ward 5.
Jeremy Hansen, Chair. I'm also Ward 5. And Catherine, I'm not sure which ward you are, so sorry. We're out of order.
Ward 5 also.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we're tripling up. All right. And city staff?
Hi, it's Racine Hodo. I'm the city liaison for the commission. I work with Jackie Guild out of the city manager's office for resilience and sustainability.
And Racine, real quick, is Jackie still planning to join us that you know of?
Yeah, I think she is. I just don't know, exactly when she's going to be able to do that.
Great. And I see Alderman Savage.
Yes, sorry, thanks. I'm technical difficulties here, but I'm on my phone.
All right. I believe that's everyone. So we do have one quick thing to get out of the way. That Racine sent out for last month. I think between me, Bill, Marianne, and Linda, we have enough of us here to approve those minutes. Correct, Racine?
I think you do, yes.
Since those of us who were here can vote to approve them. Did anyone have any edits or corrections or a chance to review what Racine sent out?
I did review the minutes and I don't have any corrections. It looks fine to me.
Looks good.
Great. I don't have any corrections either. So motion. Oh, Marianne.
I'm fine as well.
Thanks.
I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Second.
All right. All right. No, we do the ayes. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Say nay. All right, the ayes have it. The minutes are approved. So the next thing on the agenda I wanted to do was just take some time for our new members sworn in or soon to be sworn in to introduce themselves. We can also go around the horn as well and introduce ourselves to the new members. So I think, not sure which way I want to start, but since I'm talking, I guess I'll just kick us off and we can start with shorter introductions for those of us who've been here for a little while as members, and then turn it over and give a little more time to the new members so we can get to know them a little better. So I'm Jeremy Hansen. I live in Ward 5. I've been a member of the commission since 2020. I did manage to make it to some of the in-person meetings back in 2019. I think is when I started just attending because I was interested in learning what's going on in the city. I work professionally at the Chesapeake Bay program as a grantee. I work for the Chesapeake Research Consortium, which is a small little nonprofit. And I guess I'll just ask everyone to name one thing they're excited about. And my thing is that I'm about to graduate from the Watershed Stewards Academy next week in class 15. So I'm pretty excited about that. So any volunteers to go next?
Actually, it's Mary Ann. I'll go next.
Go ahead.
So Mary Ann Marbury, Ward 1. I've been on the commission a very short time, just less than a year. And I came to it via the Watershed Stewards. I was a steward from class 14. So congratulations, Jeremy. Your graduation is next week. That's awesome. And I became involved with Save Our Trees, the organization that Linda mentioned earlier. So my thing is the tree canopy. I'm all about that.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bill O'Leary, and I live over by the Navy Stadium, and I've been on the commission, I think, since 2010, although it could be 11, but for a little while now. And I grew up in Annapolis. I lived here all my life. Spent my summers on the Severn River, crabbing and swimming and fishing, and have really, have had a long love affair with the environment. And I am an IT manager for the state of Maryland at the comptroller's office right downtown. So we are gearing up for tax season. So that's what I'm excited about, if you can call it that. Thank you.
I just want to jump in there. Bill is really involved with waste management when it comes to events and zero waste and being clean about having events.
Yeah, that's a passion of mine. I would love for all events to be, have all of their waste completely recycled, and it's been a daunting challenge for a long time now.
I'll go next. I'm Linda Matthew from Ward 5. I'm in Hunt Meadow. I have been here for 34 years. I grew up in Annapolis, graduated from Annapolis High School, and before it was Maryland Hall. Let's see. I am a CPA during the day, but I don't do taxes. What I do is design and administer retirement plans for companies. So if you have questions about 401ks, I can answer that. And I came to the commission through Save Our Trees. And I grew up in Annapolis, lived here almost all my life since I was 10 years old. And it's a beautiful city, and I would like to see it stay that way.
Right, that's all the current members. But I'd like to ask Racine and then Alderman Savage to introduce themselves as well before we get to know the new members.
I'll start. Racine Hodo. My title with the city is Environmental Programs Coordinator. And I work on a lot of the city's sustainability certifications. Jackie works on a lot of the city's resilience issues. And together we are a team. And I am the liaison for the board. And if you have questions, reach out to me.
So I can go next. So Alderman Rob Savage, I've been on the council now for 6 years. I represent Ward 7, and it's nice to see a lot of new faces since the last time I joined the commission, one of your meetings. But I am chair for our Environmental Matters Committee, and professionally, I'm an environmental scientist, stormwater engineer. I work for Anne Arundel County during the day with their Watershed Restoration Protection Bureau. Yeah, so I love this work, and yeah, I'm excited to join the commission again, and hopefully we can find some good ways to cooperate, get some good legislation passed for the city.
Thanks, Rob. And I'll turn to Kathy first as the sworn-in member.
Hi, it's nice to meet everyone. Kathy Welker. I also live in Hunt Meadow, and yeah, I'll tell you the thing I'm excited about is to be participating on this commission. My day job is with FEMA, where for the past few years I've been working on some climate adaptation planning, but also some resilience planning also. And while I love being able to see what happens across the country, I have really missed working at the local level, which I used to work for Anne Arundel County, the Office of Emergency Management there. So just really glad to be able to be part of this and getting involved with my community.
Thank you, Kathy. And Sarah, you're first on my screen, so I'll turn to you next.
Sure. I'm Sarah Oliver. I work for a renewable energy company, Bioenergy DevCom, the VP of Marketing Communications. And we focus on redirecting or diverting food waste from landfills and incineration. So my kind of passion is sustainable waste management, and looking to see alternative solutions for city, county, state, and I think really focusing on methane reduction and reducing methane emissions that come out of landfills, which is our number one sort of methane emitter, one of the top methane emitters in the country. I am excited about Christmas.
And I'm surprised no one else mentioned that yet. It's that time of year. And last but not least, is it Alicia? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, it's Alicia. Hi. I am part of Ward 7. I'm at Mariners Landing, kind of on the very edge of the city of Annapolis, but I am in environmental restoration. I'm an estimator for a local contractor in the state of Maryland, and I've always been on the design bid build side of things after purchasing. So I'm pretty excited to be part of, the earlier stages of environmental practices that are put up by municipalities, specifically the city of Annapolis. It's the second time I've moved here, so I'm a pretty big fan to come back, but yeah.
Well, welcome again to all the new faces. Very excited that we have a full roster again. We are missing our vice chair this evening, Jenny, who you'll get to know as well. And Paul Murphy is the other person who's missing tonight. You'll probably get to know him and his dog through our meetings and maybe other events around town. So we'll save their introductions for another time when they're here with us. Though maybe Paul will still turn up later if we can get his mic to work. Sometimes we struggle with that. So we do have a short agenda as far as business goes. I was hoping to have a little lengthier portion of the agenda talking about City Dock, but and I apologize. We had some miscommunication, and between the holidays, the trip to the Netherlands, that all the people I needed to ask about the agenda were on. We just didn't confirm things, I think. And
I think you saw the email today. I reached out to him, to Burr Vogel. He is the director of the Department of Public Works for the city of Annapolis. He's very involved in the City Dock project, and can talk about resilience issues. He can talk about the financing of it. Excuse me. And I reached out to him. I thought he'd reach back, but I didn't do it until I didn't realize until today that he had not gotten back to us, but he is willing to come to the next meeting, which we rescheduled for December 14th. And when I say rescheduled, I think when do you guys meet? It's the last Wednesday or the fourth Wednesday of each month. But because of the holidays, we rescheduled it. So he is open to come and talk on the 14th at the next meeting about the City Dock project and the resilience issues surrounding it, and so on.
Yes, thank you very much. And so that will be moved to our next agenda, but and if Jackie joins us, she can talk to us a little bit more about the trip to Netherlands. That really, I hear, or my understanding is, they learned a lot about transportation, infrastructure, resilience, bicycling infrastructure, and I think Alderman Savage, were you on that trip?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Happy to talk about it.
Okay. Well, I think I'll shuffle the agenda around a little bit and wait for Jackie so we can have both your perspectives, if that's okay, or do you have to hop off by a certain time?
That's fine.
Okay. So we can spend maybe a little more time on that. But instead, maybe we can just skip to the updates and of projects around town. And Racine, that's mostly something you do a great job talking to us about. The one thing in particular, I think most of us were eager to hear about, was the pollinator garden and the site visit to the solar park. Didn't sound like anyone from the commission made it to that, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I waited till too long to let you know about the visit. But it was a good visit. We had the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We had Jennifer Fate from the Department of Public Works there. We had Jackie, me, Alderman Savage was there, Alderman Ross Arnett was there, and Alderwoman Sheila Finlayson was there. And I may be missing some people, but basically what we did was we walked around and we looked at areas that might be good for planting. We talked about ideal situations for planting, meaning we don't want a steep slope. So we are looking at slopes of 5% or less, because if you get too steep and when you burn off the grass, then you might get some erosion, and we're trying to stay away from erosion. I have since met with Sean Wampler with MIT. She's our GIS person. I have a meeting with her tomorrow, and I gave her a map of the areas we needed to avoid, the slopes we needed to avoid, and looking for ideal planting areas. So we haven't decided yet whether we're going to do sort of a pilot planting or if we're just going to find an area and plant it. But it was a productive meeting, and we're still following up with it. Alderman Savage, do you have anything to add? Because you were there.
I think he disappeared.
Oh, yeah, we lost him for a second, just for a second.
Oh, here he is. He's got his hand up.
Are you speaking? Oh, there you are.
Working on my technical
Okay,
issues.
there we go.
All right. Sorry, did you ask anything to add regarding the
Yeah, I mean, the visit, I thought that, I mean, it was pretty productive. We're looking for areas to plant. One of the things that we have to look out for is the distance from the top of the surface to the cap. And the cap is a combination of soil, clay, and PVC. So there's a little bit more to investigate with that.
Yeah, I think we're all still excited about the potential, and it sounded like the state agencies were also willing to work with us, and also very excited to get this implemented. And yeah, in some fashion, I'm not quite sure the scale yet, as I think Racine indicated.
Yeah.
But the council's very supportive, as is the mayor.
Yeah, it is still, you know, it's just so like in flow right now. I did forget to mention that Arundel Rivers Federation was there. And one of the things that we're looking at is, you know, the financing of it. And we do have in the fiscal 24 budget, that means until June of 24 next year, we do have some funding for it in our CIP projects, capital improvement projects. We do have some funding, and Arundel Rivers Federation was very open to help us with outreach and looking for grant funding. And we're hoping, we have not talked details yet, but we're hoping that Novus Renewables, the management company for the solar park, that they're gonna be willing to put some money in as far as like what we're going to do. So within this month of December, we're hoping to like kind of formalize something or put something together. We've talked about hiring a consultant that is familiar with a project like this, that might be able to advise us about something like this. But again, it's all up in the air right now, and you know, it's fluid right now. But we're moving in a good direction.
Questions from the group? And welcome, Paul.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me this time?
We can.
All right. I apologize for my tardiness, but I want you to know I was carrying the AEC flag at Green Drinks tonight. So,
Yes. Well, good to know. And Paul, I will say, if you're able to watch the YouTube version of this video, like after tonight, you can see the introductions from the 3 new members. So that way you don't have to. That might be a good use of time later. Kathy.
Is there a woman from Save Our Trees named, her name starts with an M?
We
Oh,
have
that's Marianne,
yeah,
Marianne Marbury, but she was already a part of
Oh,
That's
well,
right. I'm an oldie. I'm an oldie.
well, I met your colleague an hour ago. So,
Oh, so either Terry or Nina.
Nina.
Nina, very good, great.
Yeah.
Thank you for mentioning Save Our Trees.
Absolutely.
Kathy, you had a question for the pollinator garden?
Yeah, huge fan of pollinator gardens. I'm doing my own little garden in my own. I've been experimenting in my own yard with pollinators. I guess I was wondering what the like the impetus for doing this at the solar park was, and you said it might be a pilot. Is there like just to see how it goes, or are there plans to expand it beyond the solar, like beyond the solar park? It's like, you know, I didn't know what might be planned for like the rest of the city to expand pollinators in the city.
Well, this is, you know, going back to the beginning, this is sort of a pet project of the mayor. Like he really wanted to see something like this happen. And it's been a long time coming together because there are a lot of moving parts, because there are a lot of partners and people that are involved. We're now trying to decide exactly where we're going to plant around the solar arrays, inside and outside of the park. I could pull up a picture. It might take a moment for me to do that, but because there are some stormwater features that are there that we need to avoid. We need to make sure that we choose plants that are not too tall, that are going to interfere with the operation of the solar arrays. But right now, the focus is on the solar park itself. Right next to it, another pet project of the mayor is the Waterworks Park, where there's been some trail work done, and that people can sort of walk the trails and walk right up there, right next to the solar park, and see the pollinator habitat as well as the solar arrays. So right now, the focus is on the solar park.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions from the members on the pollinator garden?
Are we going to use, from what I've heard in the past, not that any of us liked hearing it in the beginning, but listening to the experts, they're like, no, the chemical way is probably the best way to go, as opposed to if we were going to extinguish invasive weeds another way. So what's how are they going to get? I believe they have to get rid of some current growth to put in what we want. So how are they going to get rid of the existing growth?
Okay, so what's up there right now is turf grass. There may be other invasives, but the invasive that I am aware of is Bermuda grass. Speaking to a landscape person, he told me if you have Bermuda grass, you just kind of learn how to deal with it and so on and so forth, but it's there. So the question is, how do you prepare for the planting? And there are several ways that you can prepare, but we've been in contact with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has been very involved with another project around solar panels over on the Eastern Shore at Easton Utilities. And U.S. Fish and Wildlife, it was Brian Callahan, Jackie, and myself. We went to a workshop. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service suggests that you use chemicals. Now, that is very controversial, but what they said was, and what they showed us was really interesting. First of all, they said that, you know, if you go in there and you mow, there's a lot of damage that you can do to the wildlife when you mow. I mean, like the slow moving little creatures can get chewed up by the mower. That's snakes and turtles, and there's some ground nesting birds and things like that that could get chewed up by the mower. Another way is to cover everything with plastic and burn it off that way. But then you've got all that plastic left over that you need to sort of get rid of and deal with, and so on and so forth. So when you look at, the lesser of two evils, the better way, and this is U.S. Fish and Wildlife telling us this, is to use the chemical to burn off the grass. And you can be very, very spot specific with the spraying. And they did a demonstration on how specific with the spraying they could be. I mean, it's not like they would just spray a wild area and so on and so forth. And then also you could also spray so that there is a, sort of a boundary of grass. What is it that I'm thinking of?
A boundary layer or a barrier?
Like not a barrier, but oh gosh, I can't think of the word right now. But you spray so that you're only spraying within a certain area, but there's still grass around the area that you're spraying, so that it doesn't get past where you're spraying. So nothing has been decided yet. Okay, nothing has been decided yet, but I am saying that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is suggesting, and they're willing to help us and work with us, that we spray.
Alderman Savage, you've had your hand raised for a little while.
Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, so the other thing to add to that is the other challenge is that the cap is only, I can't remember how deep it is. It's not that deep underneath the soil as far as the cap over top of the landfill. And so I know Public Works was nervous about any idea of doing too much aggressive tilling or removal of the existing grass. So I think that's the other challenge we face there.
Yeah, my understanding is the depth from surface to cap is 1 to 2 feet. Some areas it's 1 foot, some areas it's 2 feet. We need a better map of what's going on with the cap, but yeah, it's not very deep.
And for us, when you say cap, you're talking between the surface and one of the barriers, like the plastic sheets that's underneath that? Because they basically capped a landfill. So are you saying there's 1 to 2 feet of soil above some type of physical barrier, like a big tarp or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, my understanding is there is some soil on top of the landfill, and then on top of the soil there's some clay, and then on top of the clay is a PVC layer. And how thick that PVC layer is, I don't know. But and then there is soil that's been put on top from the cap to the surface area.
Okay.
Has the soil been tested?
That's something that we are looking at as something that we need to do. Really, I'm assuming that most of that soil is fill, but we still would need when we are deciding on what plants to use, we would need to know, the quality of the soil. So soil testing is something that is sort of in the mix of what we're talking about doing.
And can you remind us, when was the landfill capped or decommissioned?
12 years ago.
Oh, okay. I thought it was
10, maybe 10.
okay. Didn't realize it was that recent.
Or let me stand corrected. The solar park started working on this maybe 8 to 10 years ago. It was probably, I think the landfill went dormant or stopped being used 20, 25 years ago.
Sorry, and the solar arrays, they were installed, I think, in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any more questions or discussion on the pollinator garden?
Just what's probably patently obvious, if it turns out we do go the chemical route, we and not just us, the city and everybody doing this, we got to have a really succinct, clear, tight message because, you know, first blush, chemicals doesn't sound good, but so, you know, so we don't have weeks of editorials in the paper or whatever. We need to work on that to have a, and not just us, it's the city or whoever, the big good dogs who go forward with this. It's got to be clear and answered in the beginning, or others, we're going to get all sorts of people saying, you know, whiskey tango.
And Paul, you're absolutely right about that. But I won't say but, I will say and. That is why we are considering hiring a consultant to help us through this process and explain everything to us, and so that we're doing it all to the, you know, to the best standards that we can.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. Well, Racine, I'll ask then, what other projects do you want to highlight for us tonight? Either from the, I see you sent out the development projects list to us. I don't know if we had an update on the resiliency projects list or not, but you know, what are any highlights or updates you want to share?
Yeah, with the resiliency list of projects and everything, Jackie and I have talked about sort of revamping the presentation of that. So, because it just kind of seems a little catty-wonky or whatever right now. And you know, the biggest projects that are going on right now that I'm aware of are the City Dock project. There's Hawkins Cove, and that's in design right now. You know, the St. Mary's has a living shoreline that they want to install. We're in conversation with them about that, but they're still in design and trying to figure out which direction they're going to go with that. I mean, there's a lot going on. I reached out today to Tom Smith in planning and zoning, but I didn't hear back soon enough. That was my fault because I reached out late. Yeah, I don't really have any other updates for you right now.
Okay, that's fair. We have already, I think, had a solid 45 minutes here. And since Jackie hasn't joined, I think maybe we can just listen to Alderman Savage's perspective on how the Netherlands trip went. I know it's been a decent amount of coverage in the Gazette, the Capital, about the trip, and that's most of what I've heard at this point since it was fairly recent. So can you tell us more about the trip?
Yeah. Well, before I do that, would you like me to I could give a legislative briefing.
Yeah, a brief briefing.
Just for the
Oh, a
commission.
legislative briefing, like overall legislation, right?
Yeah.
I thought you meant like another briefing over the history of the trip.
Oh,
Sorry.
no. Happy to talk about the trip, but I do want to. I think since you have some new members, it might be good to highlight some of the things that have been going
Absolutely.
on legislatively. And so, to start that off, just to highlight some of the things we've done in the past 12 months environmentally, we approved a resolution regarding Wells Cove. It's a public access point in Eastport. There was some difficulty with property owners near there, but the council passed a resolution stating that we wanted to get a sign installed, notifying the public that they can access it. Because over the years, there's been some encroachment into that public easement, and it has not been advertised. And so we think it's important for people to have access to the water and know about it. Also, on Monday night, we just passed legislation that would be authorizing a pilot for a kayak storage program at the city parks. This is just going to start with 1 or 2 parks and install a kayak rack that people can pay to store their boats on. So it'll be good for people who may not have storage at home for such a boat. The city's also exploring, with our Rec and Parks department, having some kind of automated boat share set up at some of our parks, but that's still in early development. Another piece of legislation we passed of interest is, which those of you who've been on the commission for a while may remember, the turtle-friendly curbing. And so what we did is pass legislation requiring new development, but also converting existing curbing when we do resurfacing. If it's in a critical area, that we should convert it to a rolled curb that allows turtles to migrate. And I partially did this for my son. Walking around the neighborhood, we see a lot of turtle. We do smooth curb, and we see a lot of turtles walking around, including, I think, parts of Mariners Landing, or Mariners Point anyway. But in any case, that's one of the more fun things we passed. Also, we strengthened the sediment control regulations as far as sediment control inspections, because we had some problems over the past few years with certain development sites having a lot of pollution leaving the sites. And so that's been our ongoing effort, trying to improve our enforcement and get the developers to follow our laws. So as far as legislation in the process, and by that I mean currently going through the council. So again, just I guess a briefer for those. I know the old hats here would be well familiar with this, but for the council, when we put together legislation, it gets introduced on first reader. So introduction is what we call first reader. And then from there, it goes out to public hearing. And we also, on first reader, can refer it to a commission. So if you want to, anytime in the process, really, I can refer legislation to you. So if you ever want to comment on legislation, just let Jeremy know, or myself, and we can, or Racine, and we get that added, officially referred. But you can comment on anything without even a referral, because you're just because you're an advisory body. So from there, after public hearing, it'll go to come back to the council, but to our committees. So that's when the environmental stuff comes to my committee, Environmental Matters, and then we'll deliberate on the legislation, work out the amendments, and figure out how we want to change it. And then we'll make those recommendations to the entire council. So when it comes back to the entire council, it's on second reader. That's when we amend it. And then third reader, which is the same night, that's the final vote. So that's it in a nutshell. So for legislation that we currently have in the process, we have O2823, and that's actually going to be on the agenda for the Environmental Matters Committee tomorrow. It's called City Noise Prohibitions and Enforcement. And what that does is three things, all related to noise. The first is it allows for enforcement of noise violations on the water itself. So, you know, we have some new boats, party boats and things like that come in downtown. We want to make sure they don't get out of control. The second thing is it prohibits the use or sale of high frequency sound emitters. And those emitters are often used for wildlife deterrence or deterring dogs from barking. But there is concern about, their actual impact on dogs, pets, and but also people. We had a complaint that someone was getting migraines from a neighboring business using these devices. So anyway, this legislation would prohibit that. The third thing it would do is prohibit gas-powered leaf blowers from being used or sold in the city. Besides the obvious, they're just incredibly loud, and they have a lot more people teleworking. They also have an incredible amount of emissions that they put out. I think Jackie Gild or Racine, maybe it was you, had some research. Somebody was telling me an hour using a leaf blower as far as emissions is equivalent to driving a truck like halfway across the country. It's just incredible how much they emit out there. So I think it'd be good from a climate standpoint to get that passed. And another piece of legislation in the process, it's currently at the Planning Commission for review, is the adequate public facility. So adequate public facilities are regulations that are put on place as far as new development. So we want adequate facilities before we allow new development. And so that means adequate school capacity, adequate water pressure, adequate sewer, adequate stormwater. We have, what else am I missing? So there are a number of those things that we have to make sure a development, before they get approval, they have to get a certificate of adequate public facilities. If there aren't adequate facilities, they have to contribute money or some kind of mitigation usually. So that whole program has been rewritten by the administration, and so that came to the council. I have a lot of concerns about it because one of the things it does is essentially gut our entire stormwater management adequate facility standards. And so that may be something you want to take a look at as a body, because we have the standard in place for stormwater. Granted, it's not the best, but it's better than nothing. What it does is require that if the development wants to come in, they have to have adequate stormwater conveyance. So the pipes have to be large enough to convey the water. But what I'm looking to do is expand that with an amendment to say, well, let's just, I don't want to just be concerned with pipes. We need to look at the adequacy of the receiving waters. So make sure that the receiving watershed immediately around the or the water body right around the outfall is able to convey that in a way that's not going to cause erosion and the associated sediment pollution that gets discharged out of that, but also see if there's vegetative restoration that's needed. And so I'm hoping we can work that in. I hope I get that amendment passed. But that's still in the Planning Commission, so now will be a good time if the Commission's curious about taking a look at that. It is a long piece of legislation. So the other thing that's in the works is a legislation regarding food trucks, and this would expand their use. But what I'm looking to do is potentially amend that because for the same reasons as the leaf blowers, I don't like the noise pollution, but I also don't like the pollution from the generators. So I'm looking to possibly put some kind of requirement that they have to have battery powered generators, especially if they're going to be near some kind of residential community. The last thing that's in the process is, you may have heard the Forest Conservation Act. That is, it's a state law, but each municipality in the city and county has to have their own version of that. And so that applies to development that's an acre or larger. Basically, they have to take certain steps to protect the forest or to expand the forest to a certain threshold. And so that legislation, which is O2623, just closes an old loophole, but also tweaks the appeal process to make sure that, if somebody, you can appeal, the public can appeal a forest conservation plan. And so if somebody appeals it, we need to make sure that the development stops, because we don't want the forest to be cleared while it's being appealed, because you can't replace that forest once it's removed. And so I would be hardwiring that into the code. As far as legislation that's in development, which means it's some stage of development on my end or the council's end. One is, and as some of you may have heard this before, but we've been briefed by staff that, so we have a tree canopy coverage goal. Our tree canopy goal is 50% by 2035, I think. Is that right, Racine? I think that's what it is. And we're currently at 42%, I think, or 41. We actually lost percentage of our forest, and I think part of that is some large development projects, but a large part of it actually is from backyard trees, residential trees that have been lost by people taking them down when they really don't need to, or getting taken over by ivy and dying. And so what I'm looking to do, I tried to pass protections for trees over 18 inches in the entire city, but I couldn't get that passed. So I'm starting with now is just for the critical area. So if there's a tree 18 inches or larger in the critical area, they'll have to get a permit to remove it, but it also, you have to meet certain criteria in order to be able to take that down. That is 99% done. I'm just trying to figure out a way to create more of a deterrence, because some of these contractors are paid thousands of dollars to remove a tree. They don't really care if they're fined $500. And you're talking about removing a 100-year-old tree. The fine needs to be more than just $500. So I'm trying to figure out ways we can increase that, because right now our hands are tied by the state. A municipality can only have a citation going as high as $1,000. I have a plastic bag ban, which also is about 99% ready. We're gonna, for the most part, copy the county, but and I know the commission submitted a lot of recommendations on this. Right now we're contemplating whether or not to add a fee that will be collected by the city. And my intention with that would be to collect a fee that would be used to help fund cleanup efforts to remove some of the trash in our streams and waterways. And so that should be introduced soon. Another thing I'm working on is essentially a ban on new gas stations. As we're transitioning to electric and hopefully cycling, since I've been in the Netherlands, I want to move away from automobiles. And so, a number of us on the council don't want to be seeing new gas stations being built, not to mention for just the pollution aspect. And so I'm looking at ways that we can basically stop any new ones. We'll still have the old ones we'll have to deal with, but at least just no new ones. And as Jeremy's aware of, I'm working on bird safe window requirement. And this is something Lisa Rodvian tried in the county. She's our county councilwoman. She was unable to get it passed, and I'm basically copying hers, which for the most part. And so buildings over a certain size that have a certain square footage of windows would have to put certain technology on the windows to prevent birds from flying into them and dying. And the last one, which I think Marianne might appreciate, is something I'm not very far in developing it, but so if the commission has recommendations, I would love to hear them. But we've had an instance. So, for example, my yard is National Wildlife Federation, habitat yard, whatever I forget what the title is. We've had some instances of people using that in the city and not maintaining their yards at all. Even if you have a natural habitat, you still have to do some maintenance. And so I'm trying to figure out how to update our code to require that. So if we need to do enforcement, because some yards that aren't maintained have a lot of invasive species that are growing in them and end up spreading to the neighboring properties, be it English ivy or something else like garlic mustard, whatever it may be. So I think the city needs a way to get that enforced. Related to that is a lot of these large forests in the city are owned by community associations or homeowners associations. Think, not to pick on Mariner's Point, but they have a large chunk of forest in between my community, Georgetown Grove, and Mariner's Point forest. And some of those forests have quite a bit of English ivy, which ends up impacting the trees and just degrades the entire forest environment. It doesn't help that we've probably too many deer at this point, and the deer are keeping down the native, the forest regeneration and the native vegetation from regenerating. But in any case, I'm looking to try to figure out a way we can get the community associations to maintain their forests. That is it. I know I've spoken for a while, as any good politician does. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Rob, this is Bill. Thank you for all of that. Do you have any ideas as to how you would get an HOA to, maintain large swaths of forest, like practically speaking?
I don't know yet. I mean, I'm toying with an idea of possibly utilizing our watershed restoration fund and our reforestation fund to help at least provide perhaps some financial assistance, partnering with HOAs. But essentially, we could essentially use our property maintenance laws to take an enforcement action, but hopefully we could do it in a more peaceful manner than that, more civil manner.
Okay, thank you. I was also thinking, like, in terms of invasive species, I still see garden centers selling flats of English ivy. I don't know why anybody would buy them, but we can't do anything about that, I guess. But other than public education, perhaps.
Are those the ones down the one down Bay Ridge?
I don't know about them, but and this actually may be in the county, but off of West Street. Wynwood Gardens, that's probably county.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing prohibiting the commission from making a recommendation to the county. They have their, actually, you could talk, they have their own environmental commission you may want to make a relationship with if they haven't already.
Okay.
And Kathy, you have your hand up.
Yeah. Here in Hunt Meadow, we have a wonderful, large amount of tree cover and do struggle with the ivy and the vines on the trees. There's usually a volunteer effort a couple times a year to go out there. But when I look around, it barely looks like it's making a dent. So it's a real challenge to keep up with it when you've got as many trees as we do in our neighborhood.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's
not even to keep up, but just to even try to get ahead of it.
Yeah, and it is difficult with the deer because they eat all the beneficial vegetation that would be shading out the ivy. So it's ultimately we're gonna have to figure out a way to manage them as well. Sorry, I knew I threw a lot at you, so if you have questions that occur to you later, please feel free to let me know, or I'll try to join the next meeting if I can.
Yeah, and we can always also, as some of the bills take shape, we can always come back to certain items.
Yeah, I owe you, and this is, I guess, for the newer members, you may or may not be aware, but the commission has in the past issued recommendations to us, legislative priorities for the year. And so we always appreciate that. And that's a good time as well to make some recommendations to us. But the ones that are immediate are the legislation deal with the leaf blowers. That is the one that's furthest along in the process, which we'll be hearing tomorrow.
Well, I do want us to get out a little early tonight, and we still need to hear about the Netherlands trip. So I guess we can turn to that if you don't mind, Alderman.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. So the trip was absolutely amazing. Just, I mean, coming from somebody who's in the middle of their professional career, it is just, it's something different entirely when you're actually going to a country where they are probably, really, they're where we want to be, right? They're probably about, 10, 20 years ahead of us in many regards. And so it's really aspirational in that regard, but to see something actually working. So in particular, the cycling was just so drastically different, night and day different. It was just a completely different way of getting around. Everybody's doing it. Thousands and thousands of people cycling. I mean, they have garages just for bikes for thousands of bikes. They had 6,000 plus. I think their largest is 12,000 bikes that they can store in a garage. And they deliberately designed their towns to exclude cars, right? They design them so the roads will come in. They won't go through the cities necessarily, at least for a majority of the traffic, but they'll stop on the outskirts. And because they have such good mass transit and again, cycling, they can afford to do that. They end up charging people more in the cities to have more cars, do everything they can to deter them. But one of the things they asked us was, they ran us through some exercises and, asked us, what do you think needs to be done to build a cycling, to get cycling in your town? And they said, do you look at the data first? Do you look at the major intersections, which are danger points, and get those converted? Do you focus on safety so people are safely, wearing helmets and that kind of thing? Or do you look at infrastructure, getting in the paths? And what it came down to is you really just need to get the bike paths in there, because nothing else can happen unless you have some place for people to actually take their bikes. And so that's what I think we're going to focus on. But a part of it is we need to figure out funding. You may have seen and it was ironic while we were over there, we saw an article in the Capitol about the new Moore administration getting criticized by environmental groups because his Secretary of Transportation said he's focusing on expanding roadways. And that's what they're going to focus their money on. And obviously that's more emissions, more cars, more emissions. That means it's more difficult to meet our climate goals. And no mention of bikes, no mention of transit. It was really disappointing. And so funding is a big question. Even the city, we spend, roughly $3 million a year on road resurfacing with zero on pedestrian improvements, zero, not to mention zero on cycling. So our whole mindset in this country has been focused on cars. And now we have a problem, right? We have clogged streets, no parking, traffic jams all over the place, air quality, it goes down. And so you have to look. Cycling is the easiest thing to do. It'd be great to have rail and trolleys, but which I think we want to look at, but cycling is the easiest thing you can do. And so we're looking at various ways we could do that once we have the funding. In some areas we may want to take out a row of parking and put in a bike lane, make some roads one way. But it's just really, I encourage you to look up YouTube. I think the channel's called No More Bikes or something like that. But it's a guy from Canada who moved over to the Netherlands and has a lot of interesting videos about their infrastructure. But cycling, obviously, like I said, good for air quality, good for health. Everybody over there was super just in shape. They were laughing at Americans who, you drive your car to the gym and then get on a bike in a building for half an hour. Like, I mean, people were biking in the rain with their rain gear because their offices have actual cloakrooms where they can hang up stuff and shower. And people are biking around holding an umbrella in one hand while biking. It's just nothing stops them over there from doing it. It's incredible. And nobody wears a helmet because it's so safe, because you have bikes rule the road. Everybody has to yield to a bike. I almost got hit by one as a pedestrian over there. And a funny anecdote, which I like to tell people when they ask about the trip, is, we were, ignorant Americans not even knowing how to bike over there, and we get, they get upset with us. But the most they would do is ring their bell, like constantly ring the bell, ring, but we never hear it because like, oh, that's a nice sound. Over here, we're used to getting yelled at and cursed at and run off the road. But over there, they're just, they'll come by and say, "You're doing it wrong." That's about it. So it's just a completely different mindset. And as far as stormwater, the other big component of what we looked at, stormwater resilience, sea level rise preparation. We looked at a number of new technologies. We went to the Delft University. They had a demonstration area for some of their flood barriers. So we're looking at possibly including some of that technology. They had a really interesting one that was deployable, and it's self-filling. So the barrier fills in as the water comes up, and it also obviously deflates as the water goes down. And if it gets over top, that's fine because it has holes in the top. But it was really clever way to do it. But they have a lot more green roofs over there. They're again about 10, 15 years ahead of us as far as doing groundwater recharge. Very few areas are doing it here. I think we're just starting to get into that, but they recharge, they collect the stormwater and in some cases do treatment, but they'll inject it into their groundwater, into their aquifers. One to reuse during dry times, for irrigation or other gray water purposes. And also it helps with subsistence because they're sinking just like we're sinking here. And that helps to slow it down is by injecting that water into there. So they also have a lot of multi-purpose stormwater facilities where it's, they store water during the wet after the storm, but when it's dry, they can use those for recreational opportunities or parks. And then you have the big flood barriers where another interesting thing is that during World War II, they were occupied by the Nazis and by the Germans. And so they weren't able to maintain their dike infrastructure. And then after the war, they also weren't able to maintain their dikes because they were too busy rebuilding all the housing that got bombed. So they had a big storm event in 1954, I think it was, and it flooded basically the entire country. And so what they did is they said, well, never again. They made a new tax called the Delta tax, and they made it so no politicians can touch it. In this country, our infrastructure is so up and down because we get some wingnut elected and they cut our infrastructure, or take the money, use it on something else. Over there, they said, nope, we're not going to deal with that. And so what they did is they used that money to create barriers over all their streams, flood barriers. And but they planned for a 1,000-year storm event. We typically plan for 10-year, 25-year if we're lucky, 100-year if we're really lucky. They go out to 1,000 years, because they really prioritize. They're incredible engineers, but they just don't want to have to go through that and have people suffer. And here in this country, it also takes a disaster for us to do something, but it's not sustainable. The last example I'll give would be a small town, half the size of Annapolis. I don't remember how much it cost, but they had shoreline erosion, sea level rise issues. They built an enormous, probably like, a quarter mile or something of replenished the beach off the shore. And because they wanted to create the shallow sand underneath the water to help slow down the wave action. They also put an enormous pile of sand up the beach because they wanted the natural wave action to help move the sand from the pile to replenish the beach naturally into the future. And so they don't have to keep going out there like they do in Ocean City every few years and pump more sand on the beach. So they also constructed an enormous sand dune out there, and so extended their shoreline by doing that. But underneath, they put a narrow parking garage. So they're trying to deal with two things at the same time: the flooding, but also they have the same issues with parking. They want to get the cars off and away from areas that really should belong to the public. So those are the two big areas. I think those of us who were able to go are all really energized on this, and just trying to figure out how we can get this done in the 2 years we have left until the next election.
Well, great. Thank you for that. That was great summary of the trip. And I'm curious though, like on the way back or in discussions, is there a sense of any like immediate actions or priorities among those of you who went?
Well, I mean, like I said, some of the technologies we're looking to incorporate immediately into the City Dock project. Some of it we already were, but some of it we're looking at I think, at other options, including for other communities that may not be a part of that. And as far as cycling, we're also looking to incorporate that into some of the City Dock work. And because really, I'm also a lifelong cycler, but until you're actually in that cycling dominated community, you don't realize how detached we are from that here. And so I'm even changing my own legislation and my own view of what I want to see down at City Dock. So trying to do whatever I can to get the cars out of there, leave it for pedestrians, and still keeping in mind like having drop-off areas for seniors and ADA. But that's the one immediate thing we're trying to do. The other one would be the budget's going to be coming up here before we know it, and so we're going to be probably working on various amendments for that. So one idea might be to use some of that road resurfacing money and just have part of that be earmarked for cycling improvements and infrastructure. So, but before you do that, we really need to sit down and identify some good areas to do it. So one example, the mayor's been working on what he's calling the WE Trail, West East Express. Essentially goes out from downtown to Waterworks Park, so out to the hospital, to the mall. And that's something he's already been moving forward with. He has grant funding. But the part of it we also learned from the county who came on this trip that they received the money to put in a multi-use path along Forest Drive from 665, not including 665, but going from Chickapin Round Road down to Bay Ridge Community. We have it in spots, so that's another nice path. But the thing we're thinking immediately is, well, it'd be great to have a whole circle around the city. And so we need to connect this Bay Ridge path, Forest Drive path with the WE, and then trying to figure out a way to get it to go down through town. So those are kind of the immediate takeaways we're trying to put together. But it's going to take time. We need to figure out exactly how to do these things and do it in a way that's not going to create some kind of blowback, unintended blowback from the public. Because, oddly enough, cycling can be kind of, as soon as you talk about moving away from cars, people get nervous. And of all things, that's one thing I remember when I first ran for office in 2017, somebody was yelling at me is because I supported the bike plan. Like, of all things, it's a bike plan I was getting criticized for. So we need to make sure we do that carefully so that we don't do something too extreme and then can't get reelected and get people turned off. So, we have to do it carefully.
All right. Other questions, comments?
Yeah, Rob? Rob?
Yeah. Hey, Paul.
Thank you for that. Two questions. One, there's a good reason why there's points to be made why to charge for a plastic bag. I'm sorry, for a paper bag. If you don't bring your recyclable bag in and they give you a bag. And I guess that reason, first you're like, if the shop wants to give it away, let them. But is that point because you're worried about the big boxes would be giving them away for free and it would hurt the little retailer? There was some reason that made sense why it's better to charge. What was that point?
Yeah, I mean it's basically a deterrent or incentive, I guess, however you want to look at it, for the consumer not
to bring a bag.
For the consumer to bring a bag of their own.
Yeah.
And because paper, while ultimately it's better than plastic, although
reusable is better.
Yeah, reusable is better, as long as it also is made sustainably. There have been some comparisons about plastic versus paper, but when you factor in the water component to it and the pollution, the microplastics, it really clearly leans towards paper and reusable being better.
So the reason to charge a fee is to further incentivize people not to be lazy and just keep using a paper bag, but used to carrying some in the trunk. That's the primary reason?
Yeah,
that's a good reason.
I always like to try to address legacy pollution. So if we can use some of that fee for that, that'd be ideal. But I don't know if that's going to pass legal muster. We'll see.
Yeah. And the other thing which the commission's heard before, I just I'm all for what we're doing, but like you said, blowback, and I just want to make sure we're not spending a nickel to collect 3 cents. Or if it's a nickel fee, I want to make sure we're not spending 6 cents to collect a nickel, because that is where government gets too sloppy.
Yeah.
So you addressed that. When was the last time a new gas station was built inside the city?
I don't know the last one, but I know there's a site that's currently being considered for one, and that's the old Annapolis Seafood location, that closed down on Forest Drive.
Yep.
The local developer, passed around an idea of wanting to have a gas station, and then is trying to get it through by saying, "Oh, well, we'll put a food mart there to address the food desert." When people want to address the food desert issue, but it's kind of using that to justify putting in this incredibly polluting use. So, in any case, there is an immediate need for it, and I also just want to make sure we don't have to keep worrying about these expanding gas stations. So I kind of just want to set the line. They can't expand unless they add electric chargers and that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. Jeremy?
Yes, Paul.
2 things. I agree complete what you said. Our commission should not get anywhere close to look like we're endorsing a candidate. And I spoke to Jared Lippman, and he's like, he would prefer not to go to a commission meeting. And for those who want to, he's like, hey, host at your home or somebody's home or a restaurant. He would like to get in front of people that are environmentally inclined, and he wants to describe his thoughts and his vision. So point is, he won't be knocking on our door to speak at a meeting, which probably keeps us a little cleaner from other potential candidates. But for those who want to hear Jared, sometime we got 6 or 8 months or a long time to bring him together, and he'll be out, doing, talks to a variety of groups.
Thanks, Paul. And you said there were 2 things, or was that it?
The second one is, this is pretty cool, you guys. I was at Annapolis Green, right? And Veterans Compost is getting more spots, all sorts of good stuff. So I encourage us to go. but I do want to give a little plug. They just opened up in Admiral Cochrane Drive. They are making, you've seen Nike do this before. They're making sneakers out of 3D printed out of recycled plastic bottles, and they're knit. So they're super soft, right? And the name of the company, the website is Made, M-A-D-E, Made, and then the word plus, madeplus.com. And they're on Admiral Cochrane's. They got a little couple 3D printers, and they're banging out shoes, sneakers, and they have literally, like she said, 1,500 color combinations. So whatever your college colors were, you can have a pair of sneakers made out of your college colors or the state of Maryland flag or whatever you want to do. But they're local. Again, I'm just a huge fan of businesses that are repurposing waste streams. And yeah, the sneakers are $180, but Made Plus, and could be a good gift for someone. But check that out. That's all.
Thanks, Paul. And hadn't you mentioned there's another green drinks event in early December, or am I incorrect?
They're
December 8th.
December 8th?
I thought that's what you said, December 8th.
Yeah, well, just because I said it doesn't mean it's accurate. Let's see.
While he's looking, I just wanted to let you guys know, I will send this out tomorrow morning. I have registered for a webinar through CB Trust, Prince George's County Department of the Environment, and Prince George's County of Maryland, but it's invasive species, understanding the problem and finding ways to address the issue together. So it's all about dealing with invasive species invasive species. So if you're interested in registering, it'll be in the email that I send tomorrow. But I thought it would be interesting to attend, so I'll be attending that.
Great, thank you.
And I did find something. Oh, wait, never mind. That's a year ago.
Paul, are you still looking? Okay.
Maybe. Well, we can always shoot out an email if we do confirm that is happening. But yes, it would surprise me if they just had the event tonight, that they'd be meeting again that soon. But it is the holidays, so.
I thought I saw it in my notes somewhere that it was December 8th, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to beat around the bush too much here. We'll be meeting again in just a couple weeks again because of the holidays. Our meeting schedule's a little bit different. I will note I've tried creating a new Google group for emails. I think some of you received the invite and joined the group successfully, but not everyone. And I don't have the new. I think I added the new people, but I don't have all 9 of us on there yet. So if you saw something that was from Google Groups and you were just suspicious, just know it actually was me. We used to have a group like that, and it just made it easier to type in one email address rather than create a contact group of your own, and we could just all have the same thing. Yes, Kathy?
I did see it and I accepted it, but I haven't done that before. I wasn't clear if there were going to be documents in there, or but now you're explaining it's distro list instead?
Yeah, it's basically, yeah, just for a distribution email. So we can, any of us can email that email address and then it'll go to all of us. So we can just have conversations that way over email a little more easily, I think. I just set it up for the members, but we can always just remember to copy folks like Racine or Jackie as appropriate, or Alderman Savage. So I'll go back into that at some point this week and just see who didn't accept or didn't get added, and maybe follow up with you individually if still having trouble. I think it worked well when we had that set up a couple of years ago for the members. So I didn't have admin rights to the old group, so I can't edit that. And we have in the past also used Google Drive. I think effectively we've kind of fallen off that train a bit once our previous Vice Chair Allison Colden and our previous Chair Randy went away. So I know I'm still on there, and I believe I have the ability to add people, so you may also see invites go out that way. So we have files from at least the last couple years on there, as well as this year. So just some housekeeping there. We'll try to operate in a digital world as much as we can when it does come time to either draft correspondence or recommendation letters to the city. It just helps to do it on Google Drive. But if you have strong opinions or you have difficulty using those, also just reach out and let us know, or let me know, and we'll try to manage that. I do hear a crying child, so let's try to wrap this up. And I'll just thanks to everyone again for joining us this evening. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I so motion.
And a second?
I second.
Thank you, Linda. All right. And well, I think I know how we're all going to vote. Say the ayes have it, and just adjourn for the evening, and see you all hopefully again on December 14th for our next meeting. Thank you so much. And thank you to city staff.